After you told me, okay, that's fine. So now I'm trying again. Can't talk to you without talking to me. Guilty of the same old thing. Thinking a lot about listeners and forgetting the good things.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Coding with the Dead, the studio remote. Oops, I forgot to tweet to say that I'm alive, or going live, so let me do that. I'll tweet that in a second. Welcome to Coding with the Dead, the studio remote. Last week's episode is now a standalone video that you can see on our channel under videos instead of under live streams, and I strongly recommend that you do because it was great. It was we sort of went over and launched / introduced / discussed the Unsilencing Slavery project, which is the first project to be generated by the studio remote process, in part. Of course, the Rose Hall Project show ran in 2020, and I don't even know if we did a full year. I think we just did a semester of it. But it set the groundwork for an application that is now, or a website that is now visible for everyone to see, and please go see it and immerse yourself in the attempts we have made to tell certain stories about the 200 enslaved persons at Rose Hall that we have records of. Rose Hall in Jamaica, that we have record of from 1817 to 1832. This week we're back to normal scheduled programming, which means that it's me by myself with some music in the background, and that's coming in and out, and that means that I am going back to work on Wandertext. Now, today, this is part of why I wanted to get the tweet out, but I had to run and get water really quickly. So let me do the tweet because it'll sort of explain what's going on and what I have in mind for today. So let me launch my little Twitter thingy, and then do this and then do does that work? No. Okay. So I'm going to switch over to my computer really quickly here, and you can see, oh, hey, it's me, but I actually don't want to do that. I want to quote tweet the tweet that announced this, and so, okay, and we are live. I finally understand contextual components in Ember.js, and I cannot wait to try and explain them live on YouTube. Watch me do it within 57 seconds of this tweet's publication. And then let's add the YouTube link one more time just to be safe. And we are live on Studio Remote. There we go. Let's tweet. Pow! Okay. So the reason that I want to talk about contextual components is that, you can see it's right over here. App structure and contextual components are what we're going to be working on today, or what I'm going to be working on today with you watching me. So we can say it's a we're thing. We are going to be working on it. One thing that came out of the discussion, or the sort of push to put the Unsilencing Slavery project online, is reliance on a couple libraries that looked very promising and very much like what I wanted to have happen in the app, but I couldn't quite understand how they got where they got. And I could tell that it was doing things with the yield helper in Ember handlebars. So Ember, the templates are written in handlebars, and there's a yield helper. Curly brace, or just brace, brace, yield, brace, brace. And I've never understood how to use that helper. I mean, I understand conceptually what it does. Like if you have a component that is, let's say a button, and so you have the template for the component is the opening button tag and the closing button tag, and if in the middle you put in yield, then that means when you invoke the component, like let's say it's the name of the component is close button. That wouldn't be a good idea to make as a component necessarily, but hey, I actually probably did that in this app. So if you have close component, you have you do open tag close component, and then you can type in what the text is that appears inside the button tag in the component template. That's what the yield does, is it yields the component back to whatever template called it. So for something like filling in text or filling in, other like content in some way, it's rather straightforward. The creating a universal button component that you then use in block format to put in what the text is perhaps sort of a class. I feel like I'm sinking. No, I don't know. I feel like I'm too low, like my chair is sinking. Anyway, that's the classic sort of use of the component, is that, or one classic use is you have a generic button component and you yield out to get the text of the component. Other things you can pass in as parameters, like say there's a click handler or some other thing like that. So what I've seen, if you've ever used Ember, then you've seen really quickly like helpers like the each helper. Well, specifically the each helper lets you do something like each some array, each this dot array as, and then in between pipes, as person, as thingamajig, as USB cable. And then you are yielded this variable USB cable that stands for each iteration of this dot array. And that makes sense. I mean, I'm very used to doing that. That even is rather Ruby-ish language, like complete with the with having the yielded variable in pipes. I think that's what it's called, the yielded variable? I don't know. But then I see people using components that yield something out. So the classic example, now I guess I can switch over to my regular computer and switch to the browser. So the classic example here for me is Ember Leaflet, and it's only the classic example because it's the one I use. The one where I saw this for the first time was like, why? How? I don't understand. So if you look at the documentation and you go to read the so you see that it starts by being invoked as leaflet map with some parameters, like initial parameters, latitude, longitude, that's for the center of the view, and the zoom level. Then if you go to start adding layers, you see that instead of nesting components like leaflet map : something, we do leaflet map as layers, and then we have layers.tile. Okay, that's cool. And then if you keep scrolling, oh, this is still layers.tile. But now here you have layers.tile. This is clever. This is new that there's this night mode, or if maybe not new, but I haven't noticed it before. But that's something that's important for me, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But then you have like this restaurant's, and it's layers.marker. So you have leaflet map as layers. Then there's a layers tile, open close, layers tile. I should zoom in. This is probably maybe a little bit tricky to see. Okay. Layers tile, open close over here, layers tile, open close over here. And then this restaurant, so here's an array as R, so this is a restaurant. And then you have layers.marker. And then over here there's as marker. And then you have marker.popup. And then the content of the pop-up, close marker.popup, close layers marker, close the each. Then we have layers.polygon as polygon. Polygon tooltip, okay, so polygon yields some kind of tooltip component that you can then fill in with danger zone, blah, 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 blah. Same thing here. Marker yields some kind of component called pop-up that is that then takes this as a yielded block to provide the formatting for the marker. Close polygon tooltip, close layers polygon, close leaflet map. So I've been using leaflet map or Ember Leaflet almost as long as I've been using Ember. I mean, I think, I started using Ember like literally in 2013 or something, and because it was shortly after I moved to Lithuania, and that was in 2012. So I started using it in about 2013, and among the first things I wanted to do was try to use Ember to create these kinds of leaflet maps. So I saw Ember Leaflet, blah blah blah, and I have used and reused this syntax because I'm often just sort of copy pasting, and I understand like a little bit what's going on here. But how on earth is there like this tile component? How on earth is there this marker component? And I started sort of getting the sense of it when I offered to refactor Ember Leaflet to make it a version 2 add-on, which is some very like deep Ember stuff. Deep. Hello. Okay, there we go. For somehow I disappeared for a second. So anyway, that's some deep Ember stuff, version 2 add-ons that nobody who's just building an app with Ember probably needs to worry about much, but once you become an add-on author and stuff, then these things become important. And converting it from a version 1 add-on to a version 2 add-on involves like getting into the weeds and figuring out how the add-on works. And once I did that, I was like, this is complicated. So for other reasons that don't actually have to do with contextual components, I had to put that on hold. But then more local to the unsilencing slavery example is Ember Popper. So it's this Ember Popper add-on that, as the author, Nullvox Populi, says, a single Popper.js component with an easy-to-use API for creating popovers, tooltips, etc. And then the example given here, this is an example to create a menu that has like a little drop-down pop-up. I was just like, menu as menu, okay. Popper.js as reference popover, huh? Then menu.button. What on earth is menu.button? How can I see what menu.button? Like, what? This seems to be like some kind of component, and then like I'm just feeding a modifier to it, and then just all these kinds of classes, and then other attributes that come from like this. And then what does this mean? Yield menu to trigger. Okay, well I know enough to know that the well. So what does this mean? I'm yielding menu. And to trigger, what does that mean? So now I know that the to trigger part means, and this I figured out a couple like months ago now, that means that it's yielding to a named block. So I can refer, actually let me zoom in on this too. This is probably tricky to read also, or tricky to see. 2 equals trigger means that I can use it's a named block. And that I've started to sort of understand. Ember named block component. So you can have like a default, and this is also, I'll zoom in on this. I don't know why everything has been zoomed out, but it's probably because I was referring to this documentation in the push and not on the stream, so I zoomed out. Anyway, colon default, so it would be like colon trigger. So somewhere there's some kind of reference to some kind of block that's just like open colon trigger, close colon trigger. And then there's a menu.items, huh? And then what is this items as items? What how can this feels like an array or something, but like what's the array here? It's just items. And then yield, okay, what? In short, this is very confusing to me. Very, very, very confusing. And this isn't like a knock on the developer or on the way Ember does it. It's just something that I couldn't understand how it worked, and I needed to sort of I didn't want to ask anyone to explain it to me like I'm 5, because I'm not 5. I should be able to figure it out, despite not being, by being much more than 5. And I sort of know now how this works, and the way I figured it out is by going to the code. So this uses the Ember Headless UI add-on, which is very, very much Alpha E, but is being used in Unsilencing Slavery because it really sort of solved the problem we needed. And although, wait. What problem did it solve? Oh, that's right. I made the drop-down menus with it. So in Unsilencing Slavery, unsilencing-slavery.org, and let me zoom in a little bit here to make this also a bit easier to read without making it jump into the mobile mode. Okay. This menu here, this is being done with the basically using the code from that thing where I was just like, huh? Because I ended up figuring it out and kind of understanding it. And so this menu is created with that. And then, oh, if you are in mobile mode, there's a little menu up here that lets you see the menu. But in computer mode, you don't see the menu because you don't need that drop-down menu because you see this. So, because the difficulty I was having was I was doing all these sorts of hacky things to make sure that when I click here, it opens the menu, and then if I click here on gender, the menu closes, for example. Like I was doing these kinds of hacky things where I was stacking click handlers effectively, which is probably not a great idea. And then if we go back here, so let's go back to... Oh, that's because we're already there. I was just expecting that to clear out the query parameters. You know, like little things like, okay, I'm not on the menu, I'm somewhere else, and I click and close the menu. That's a focus trap issue. And I didn't know what to do. I was just like, I know that this add-on will help it. I just have to understand the way the contextual components work. I just have to figure it out. I have to see what's going on here. So I went to the Ember Headless UI, and if we look, oops, this is the actual thing. So there's a demo page somewhere. Here it is. And if we go to the demo, we see, like, okay, so here's a basic menu. Like, yes, this is exactly what I want. See, click open, click close, like, so great, perfect. Like, I click open, I click somewhere, whoops, I click somewhere else, it closes. Like this little highlights, all these great things. I was like, yes, boom, that's exactly what I want. The menu with popper doesn't work. And the menu with transitions has just a little fade, which I think I get the fade for free. I can't tell if it's fading or not. It doesn't really look like it's fading. But I would have gotten the fade for free with Tailwind if I wanted to, I think. Anyway, and then there's other things. So for example, the dialog modal, whoop, this is going to replace the current modal that you see at the beginning of the... Or actually, maybe it already has. I can't remember if I merged that into main or not yet. But I replaced the modal library that I was using because it was causing all kinds of problems because of how it requires the use of the document variable, which causes trouble when you are trying to use fastboot or to pre-render your pages because they're running on the server, which means there is no document variable. So, okay, so I go back to the dashboard. Let me sort of turn the music down a little bit because it really blasts in when I'm not speaking. And I had, so I was just like, okay, well, this can't be that complicated. So menu basic, options, you click on that, and then there's like these little things. So I'm like, this won't be a problem. So let me go to the test app, app, components, menus, basic. And then like, oh boy, this is too much. This is too complicated for me. There's too much to read here. It's making my head hurt. But we do see a couple things here. We see this item as item. We see menu as menu. So how about instead of looking at the dummy app, the test app, I look at the actual component, and I know that it has this menu component, and then here's the answer. So just like here, we have this yield menu. So it yields the variable menu, which is defined here, menu as menu. So it yields it to some named block called trigger. And I think what that means is... Oh, I can see how you would use that. Okay, yeah. Because then you just do like, you put this in another file called like dropdown or something, and then you do dropdown, open tag dropdown, and then you do open tag : trigger, and then you put in your trigger content, and then close : trigger, and then open : options or whatever. Because this is two options. And we can see that this is yielding instead of a variable. It yields a hash. So menu, when you do menu as menu, that variable menu is a hash that has an isOpen property, has an open property, has a close property. So this is open. We know from looking at code and stuff that this is a Boolean, it's true or false. This open is the function that you use to open the menu. This close, the opposite. Then it yields out a button component, which is just like a literal invocation of a component. So component menu / button. So this is using the path terminology. I don't know if it's, or the nomenclature. I don't know if that's what it's called. But like what would be in a regular component tree described as menu : button. When you're writing it in text to invoke it here, like as a string, you do menu / button. And then it just like passes in things into the component. So these are attributes. So like button GUID, items GUID is open, etc., etc., etc. That these are things that then this menu / button component has. And then there's a menu / items component. And then there's an items item component too, I think. So if we go into the menu folder, we see that there's a button template. There we go. And then there's an items template. And what does items do? Okay, so it does some stuff, and then it yields out the menu item component with some stuff. And then what does the menu item component yield out? It yields out the menu item element component. So why this is all necessary, I don't know. Like, I haven't looked into this add-on, but now I understand where that like menu, what menu .B button means in this example. Like, this is a reference to the menu / button component. So I'm passing in class names and whatever and other attributes, and then yielding, basically. Like this part is still a little bit too far for me to understand, but like I said, like I could just do a tag with a colon and do trigger and put more stuff in there. And then the cool thing is that I don't think that there's an example of it here. But what we end up with is, because then this ended up being my question, like, okay, this stuff makes sense, or it's starting to make sense. But then, like, if we see, like, there's this is open, like, how do I get access to whether the menu is open or not? How do I get access to the function to close it or not if I'm just existing in this kind of, like, hypothetical space where I have a menu as menu? Like, you'll notice that there's this keyword is nowhere in this example. I can't remember, writing such an interactive component and never using the word this is just, like, it just feels like metaprogramming or something. Like, you want the component to do something, you define a class for it, and you give it a this, and then you use this to refer to that class to do something. So, the menu button should say, like, menu.button on click this handle click, or this toggle, or whatever. But you don't, because that stuff is defined when you define the menu, and then you refer to it here as menu as menu. So menu dot whatever. So we can look at how this looks concretely in the unsilencing slavery code. If I go here, so I have this, I created okay, so it hasn't been merged into main yet, but it must have been. Yes. Okay, so we have this, header menu. So we have menu as menu, and this is mostly the same kind of stuff that we saw in the example for Ember Popper. So we see menu as menu, Popper.js is reference popover, menu button, so it feeds in the reference modifier. Let's zoom this in a little bit more. Feeds in the reference modifier, and then a bunch of classes, and then you can't see it here, but then it closes the tag, and then the contents of menu button are this SVG that says menu. And I really should put in title and description for it for accessibility purposes. and then you close. And then the items, see, this is it. Like, I was like, well, how do I get it so that when I click on the items thing, it closes the menu? When I click on the menu, so menu.items. And the answer is it's available as menu.close. Like, that's it, the end. And that's when it started really clicking. That this was a way of sort of storing a bunch of stuff, storing, you know, however you want to talk about it in terms of like state or other aspects of the component, storing them in such a way that they're accessed with the word menu instead of a this. And the benefit of that is that, like, you aren't like, well, what is this? And then it also lets you pass variables or pass stuff through these kinds of block components, because this has always been kind of the tricky thing. So let's say I have a component that you use in block format, so like that button, right? And the button example that I gave in the beginning. So let's say the button component has a property called like icon names, right? It's just an array of strings that refer to an icon name. So if I go to, and maybe if I write this out in text, it'll be a little bit clearer. So I have this button component. Maybe I should make that even a little bit bigger. So I have this button component, and then, you know, I can give it like various styles, whatever, you know, like BG dark, you know, I don't know. And then, again, so the button component oh, that's why it's not working. So I have like export default component class button component extends component. We don't want the ember one, we want the glimmer one. I don't know that it matters for this example. And then let's say we have like SVG names. And, you know, like arrow, smiley, now I can do like click here for more, but if I wanted to like then put in SVG jar and I wanted it to, this is a bad example now that I'm seeing it. The point is that inside the actual, so this is button, but then like let's pretend that we have here, so this is the button template. So we have like type equals button, you know, and then ... attributes, so that it reads in the class BG dark from above, and then, you know, like we can do yield, and then do SVG jar arrow to make the little arrow, and then button, or I think it's get this SVG names 0 to get something from an index. Don't hold me to that. And then, so I can make a reference to this .svg names inside the template for the button, but I have no access to SVG jar, or sorry, to SVG names here. Like I can't do like this SVG names. This doesn't mean anything. maybe this shouldn't be an array and it shouldn't be SVG name. It should just be, this maybe makes a little bit more sense. You know, like I can't do this SVG name. However, if I do yield hash SVG name, this SVG name, and I close the hash. Then up here, I can do button as, you know, button, whatever, it doesn't matter at all. But now I can refer not to this SVG name, but button.svg name. And that is just like everything exploding in my head. Because I could not I don't know that this is the right syntax, actually. Equals, not colon. I could not figure out how to get the stuff that I define inside the component into the yielded space, and that's how you do it. That's how you do it. And just I knew that it was something with yield, but I didn't really know how, and you know, like all this sort of stuff. But now I know, and that's how you do it. So why use these contextual components? And I'm going to actually, I need to take a unexpectedly a break earlier than normal. So maybe let me see where I am with the beats. See if I take a break, will I be missing any of the especially hot beats? No, but so let's take a break, and I'll be back, and then I'll make the transition from contextual components to app structure, and you'll see why I think that this is important and something that I have to do today before moving on with Wandertext to try and really get something up and running in the next few months. So let's say I'll be back. It's 3:35 now. Let's call it 3:50. That's 15 minutes. That's kind of normal. I won't take a break at 4 like I normally do. And I will see you then. Ciao. Okay, I got a little bit carried away talking about the Better Call Saul series finale with my friends during the break. But now I'm back, and upon coming back, I'm going to make a switch from talking about contextual components, to, I overshot it, contextual components to moving to app structure. And this was already visible from from earlier in the stream. So I created this file here, components by route, and this is a markdown document that sort of tried to imagine each route in the context of like what components are, like how basically what the template plus minus of every route should look like. And I think it was a useful exercise because it helped me sort of start figuring out what components I needed. However, the issue is I think it quickly, not it, but I think the actual application itself rather quickly got out of sync with this documentation, because I made this documentation like as a sort of planning thing, and then I kind of like made, if I recall correctly, I made some of these initial components, and then everything sort of fell to pieces. So, or didn't fall to pieces, but things stepped away. So, one of the things that I wanted to point out with the contextual components is that one thing they help do is they help get rid of this. And this is a pattern. I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's an anti-pattern because it's explicitly like Ember / handlebars, whoever, HTML bars, had to explicitly make this syntax available to refer to nested components. But I think it's a little bit unclear, and it's a bit of a pain to type, but so be it. So there are a couple so basically everywhere where there's this like : instead, I think it should be, so here it should be like menu as menu, and then there should be a menu item with an icon in it. So, and then menu should close. I don't think I put in the closing tags here, but I should have. Wait, what? How is this menu? Oh, menu as menu here. And then, there we go. And then this should be each item. Like this. And I think that this will help explain things a little bit better. So let's see, and then I opened up the folder list here on the side to see what kinds of stuff we've got here. Okay, so we have like, this ain't great. I'm having just a folder called lists with a bunch of not particularly well defined components in it. A little bit. It's not great. It's okay. It's not great. I mean, with the contextual components, it's still going to do the same thing. It's just going to help the syntax along a little bit, and it's going to be able to leverage. I won't be necessarily passing values all over the place. So I mean, that's the presumed benefit of doing things this way. So everything that has a folder, so info box, lists, let's close lists for now because I have this funny feeling it's just going to be impossible. Map, menu, modals. Okay. So there are a couple things here. And before I go forward, I want to switch over to I need to create a new epic. Implement well, I could just call this contextual components. And there's going to be a couple things that this brings to the table. Refactor for contextual components. So one part of that is moving parent components to index components. And then let's see here. So we have info box, lists, map, menu, modals. Info box, map, menu, I'm going to rename modals to dialogues because what's going to happen is we had the opening modal, so I think it's still there if you go to the main app. Yeah, I hate this. About a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago, I was like, get rid of, must never see again. Although I guess I'm seeing it right now. And instead, the whole front page was reimagined to be this completely fascinating blank page, basically. I think that I have it available if I actually start up the app. Okay, so in the current version of the app, this hasn't been pushed yet, but you can see that the modal is gone, has been replaced with this. There's still this map here, which I don't like anymore on the index route because, like, what am I showing here? But I didn't want to, like, I didn't want to get bogged down. Like, this is what happened on the stream about a month ago, is I started getting bogged down in these kinds of design questions, and I don't want to say they're not important. They are obviously very important. But there was something about improvising it during the stream that felt like a waste of the viewer's time. Watching me try to imagine what this front page should look like, I don't think is as valuable or as compelling as far as content is concerned as watching this app take shape. And so I want to focus more on the Embery stuff instead of the Figma-y stuff, especially since I already spent months of doing just Figma when this show began back in 2021. So, okay, so we have, so what was I going to do here? I was going to keep adding these. Okay, so info box, map, menu, dialogues. So there may still be dialogues or they may be toasts, but I can call them dialogues for now. So info box, map, menu, modals, lists. So I have to figure out how to do this list thing. So let's also do lists. But it shouldn't be lists, it should just be list. And there shouldn't be dialogues, it should just be dialogue. Because that's the whole point, is that we're going to use context to figure out what to do. So. Okie dokie. What else do I have to do here? I have to update the component map to reflect refactored components. Okay, and rename modals lists. Okay, so I think I can probably do a bunch of this in the next hour. So let's rename old components. And then this will only take a second, so it's almost even a little bit goofy. And we have to so I'll also only take a minute. $10.98 and $10.99. Okay, so let's do the renaming first. So let's not do that in here. I'm pretty sure all that's in modals is, yeah, the content of the, yeah, so let's just remove it. Probably the best way to do this is ember destroy component modals index. Okay, so now app components modals has the template. So the reason I didn't delete the template is because of Emberclead TypeScript blueprints. Someday. But I think it removed the test, so nope. Then we have to git move and then I have to change how all of those tests are invoked. Let's see, it says lists entry list. So this isn't a big deal, but it should be done. So cf do. Okay. So that fixed all of that. Then so there isn't a list component, but there should be. So I think this is the problem. So if we look at if we look at the templates for the routes, let's do this way. So if we look at text, we see here header, and then we have lists, text list. That's probably not how this should be done, but I'm not going to fix this yet. Or I'm going to rename this list, text list. But this is not how this should be done. This should be list as list, and then text item tuk type thing is how this should be done. So that'll be a bit of work, but that's okay. So now that's the other thing I have to do is replace all instances of lists : with just list : Let's type lists correctly. weirdly, that is insufficient. Not weirdly, like, obviously this is a ton of things are going on here. So... So let's just replace every instance of lists with list. Do all those instances seem like they make sense? Yes, but that last example is going to cause trouble. I really have to change this case insensitive default nonsense. This is a bad setting. Remember when I said this was only going to take a minute? I have no idea what's going on here, but this should be renamed, definitely. Okay, so list got renamed, modals are destroyed. I am also going to, while I'm at it, this sort of... I think that this is sufficient. Okay, so we kind of have this. Okay, this makes sense. And then all these changes look good. Looks good to me. So let's I probably should have ran the tests before I committed, so let's just do that. Okay, so I have these two failed tests. I don't know if this one ever worked or had been working. I would expect it to, but data test markdown blurb should exist. This is in component item. Wow, what an awfully named component. Who wrote this app? If this has blurb, data test markdown blurb. Is that what it says here? Data test markdown blurb. Has blurb. Okay. Okay, so it sends in this model with this attribute markdown blurb. This is data test markdown blurb. And then here we have if this has blurb, we have data test markdown blurb. So this is where we put the selector. Data test markdown blurb. Data test markdown blurb. If this has blurb. Markdown blurb. Okay, so what does has blurb do? Is that the problem? Wow. So, okay, so looking here, we see data test markdown blurb should exist, and it doesn't. So it can't find the target element, which means that has blurb is coming in as false. So I don't know if this works this way, but I can try to do this set has blurb true. Did I wipe out the server? Okay, so... Alright, now I nuked it. No such file or directory. Okay, so it's complaining about some other stuff. Remember when I said this was going to take 1 minute? Let's up the estimate. Even though this is already closed. Okay, so that's not working. This may never have worked, by the way. This has nothing to do with what I've been doing, but now I'm a little bit irritated that I have just arbitrary breaking tests. So I shouldn't have this has blurb. This is unnecessary, because what I'm doing here is I'm here. Has blurb asks if this args model is an instance of text model. That's bad, because has blurb does not mean that it's an instance of text model. Has blurb means that it has a blurb. So only texts have blurbs, but texts aren't required to have blurbs. So what I should do is this markdown blurb. If this markdown blurb, then make the markdown blurb. So I do get markdown blurb, and I do if blah 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 blah, do this. Otherwise, return tuk tuk. That shouldn't be blank. That should be, let's make it false for now. And then, so then that means the return value here is either string or false. So this still isn't working, and that's possibly because this args model is not an instance of text model. So how do I make this args model an instance of text model? So because presumably this will cause problems with TypeScript, but let's get rid of the. Let's just have this. So now it's going to complain because it's going to say, hey, oops, markdown blurb does not exist on place model, contributor model, blah, 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 blah. But these are TypeScript errors. So presumably this should work. The test doesn't care. Ta-da, test works. So if I want to add this gate here, this args model instance of text model, then somehow in the test, which is oops. I need to set the instance of the model. So let me try this as text model. Woohoo! That fixed it. See? TypeScript, I'm starting to understand you. You sneaky, sneaky guy. Okay, and so now this text works. This test works. So I'd broken it ages ago. So this is just a completely different thing. So, oh. So what's this in item HBS? Oh, I got rid of... Okay, so this is just a completely different thing. I don't need to make an issue for it. But let's double check to make sure that everything I did is okay. Okay. I mean, I'm sure that the just check or the quote like the empty string would also break the if, but this is a little bit tidier. That we're not touching, and then this is a. Oh, why did you do this? What on earth is this? This is Python from a different project. Alright, the other failing test. Wait, why did it break? Did that type check not work? Okay, so this uses, it doesn't use the this dot set. It uses a different kind of it changes the, for this to work, I think that you have to change the context, but I don't see the context being changed. So here we have profile extends component user. Okay, fine. So this user : user, but I have to somehow tell it that there's going to be a user in this. So, oh, it won't type check. It doesn't exist on test context. There we go. So, this is what we need to do. So, let me go back here. And let's do... and let's create a nope, it's not an import, it's interface text model context extends context. Is that what it's called? Test context. And then test context comes from Ember test helpers. And I'm going to add text model, and I'm going to make it an instance of, or I'm going to make it an instance of text model. Okay, I can dig it. So, and then here I do so here I change the context. I think function this context. Text model context. And then here I can get away without setting. I can do this text model equals, but this won't work because I have to remember what are the
Spanish lady come to me, she lays on this road. Round and round and tremble and explode. Like the smoking clear of my mind that I keep blown away. He come round and doesn't leave for standing on a cloudy day.
I'm still using Mirage here, right? Yes. Okay, so how does Mirage do this? So, if I remember correctly, there's something about how you don't want to use Mirage to just create models on the client. Yeah. So if I'm going to just, so yeah, let's use this owner lookup thing. This text model is store, create, record, text, and then name is required. And markdown mode is not required, but is what we're testing. Shoot, what is the star? Oy, oy, oy. I'm very, very close to being, and I'm not even positive this is going to work. I thought that just doing a little bit of typecasting would fix this, but this is, I mean, this is the appropriate way to be doing this, because I am testing against whether this is a model, whether this is an instance of a model, not just a plain old JavaScript object. Okay, so now I want to, I have to remember what the type is of the Ember data store. So where do I go for that? Ember, CLI, TypeScript, that'll tell me. Wait, that'll be in... Store, from Ember data store.
Just in the wind came storming through the door, but who can the weather coming? Just one a little piece to die.
Okay, looks good.
Friend or two, I know.
Alright, so that did the trick. Right? Because, okay, so this is all here, blah, 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 blah. And then, does it still have the strong version of the requirement? Yep. Okay, so it has the strong version of the test and the test passes. So this is, quite a bit off the beaten path of what I was planning on doing, but that's how this always works out. But to explain what happened, so in this component for this item thing, what I wanted to do is I wanted to, if the item that's in the list has a property called markdown blurb, then I want it to get printed, right? Now, the problem is, so I can do if the way, the way you ask if it has a property markdown blurb in regular JavaScript is very simple. You just say like has key or whatever, or if blah markdown blurb. You can't do that in TypeScript because item, what's coming in as model can be one of the place model, the contributor model, the entry model, or the text model. And it doesn't, if I just do if has key whatever, that's not, TypeScript is going to be angry. Because I need a way of telling TypeScript that yes, this is for sure a text model. So this is one way of doing that, because now it doesn't complain. Like if I remove this requirement, I mean I won't do it because we saw it earlier, TypeScript will complain and say, can't do that because markdown blurb does not exist, is not a property that even exists on this args model thing, because it only exists on one of these things, text model. So there are a couple of ways of you know, finagling it to make sure that it works, but this is fine. But this messes up the test because the test somehow, the model that gets passed into the component here, we need to make sure that it's understood that it's a text model so that then it passes that if check. So the way you do that is by actually loading in the store and then creating a record that's of text. So now inside the application, it understands that this .text model is an instance of text model, and it works. I think, I'm pretty sure that I can't just do like create a regular variable called text model. Let's double check. I'm not entirely sure why this doesn't work, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. So let's just do const, okay. So it's going to complain that it's being unused here. And yeah, and it crashes. So undefined blah blah blah. So if I go back to this .text model and change this to this .text model and save it, test passes. So this is a very like slightly weird. I mean, I'm sure it makes sense, but is unexpected-ish behavior for me. That anything I pass into the anything I pass into the component has to be defined on the test context. It can't be defined just, you know, within the test as just a random variable. It just won't work. So so I set the text model to that, and then there you go, and the test passes. So now I can go back to lazy git and yeah, and yeah. I'm going to amend this commit. Okay, I am like having like chills on my spine, and maybe because I'm executing at such a high level right now. So I'm going to stop the stream because it'll stop anyway in about 4 minutes. But I'm going to just say bye now and go to the closing screen, and I will see you all next week. So, ta-ta.